welcome back to Beating a Dead Horse. As always, I am your host, Sean McKinda.
And I'm your host with the most, Jackson Pinhead Keller.
God, you were really struggling with that intro, huh?
You did a bit. It took me by surprise in a good way. I was like, damn, that was a solid, wordplay pun bit. Mm-hmm. And I just had nothing. You blew me the fuck out this time. You win this round.
I felt like you're looking for like your own like your Cenobite Sona in that opening.
I was, but Pinhead's the only one I know. Well, there's the Chatterer, Deep Throat, Butterball, Bound, Binding. Those are the big ones. Bound is the one that we're going to be talking a little bit about in Hellraiser 8. Although I think Binding was the female version from Hellraiser 7. So the main ones you need to know, just Pinhead, Chatterer, Butterball, Deep Throat, and the Wall Crawler / Engineer. There you go. I'm definitely Butterball. Not a doubt in my mind.
Oh boy. So we are continuing Blockbuster Weeks 2, the sequel, in the most Beating a Dead Horse way possible by saying, fuck you, fuck off. It's our podcast. We can do whatever the fuck we want. Because our discussion was originally, hey, we did E.T. 1 for the 80s. We got to do another 80s sequel at this point. There's not an E.T. 2, unfortunately, as we talked about. Jesus Christ, give us E.T. 2 Night Terrors, please. So unfortunately, we're like, all right, what the hell are we going to talk about? And our options were kind of either Mac and Me or like a Super 8, something of a similar ilk to E.T., but, with a twist to it. Like Super 8 is modern, Mac and Me is bad, apparently. Neither of us have seen it, but we're both kind of like, that feels lame. Let's do a sequel to an 80s movie. And I don't think that I don't know when the original Hellraiser came out, so I don't know if it's a summer blockbuster. I know it wasn't a blockbuster because it's Hellraiser, but it did get a sequel, and by a sequel I mean 10. I think we're up to 10 sequels at this point, and it's slated for a reboot.
It is indisputably an 80s franchise.
Yes. So we also decided when we looked at this to be like, we did Hellraiser 1, we did Hellraiser 2. Both of those movies are good for their own right. Hellraiser 1 is genuinely just a fucking masterpiece of a film, and I include the ending in that because the ending kind of rules in an absolutely terrible way. Hellraiser 2 is a flawed movie, but has a lot of really interesting, clever stuff going on with it, and a very clear continuation of what was happening in Hellraiser 1. But then, do we just go to Hellraiser 3? That's boring. Why not skip 7 movies and jump to Hellraiser 8? Come on.
Well, because from what I understand, and you can correct me as our resident Hellraiser stan, is that like the consensus amongst the fandom seems to be that like once you get past 2, you're kind of in the like Jason Voorhees schlock zone no matter where you go.
I am curious about Hellraiser 3 because Hellraiser 3 is a continuation of Hellraiser 2. I know it does involve Leviathan some more. I think Julia is still around in Hellraiser 3. So like there is some interesting stuff that I want to dig in. Like I would love to see Hellraiser 3. I have not yet. And honestly, after watching Hellraiser 8, I am probably going to be watching a lot more of these Hellraiser sequels. And I know I've been promising that since Hellraiser 2, but like, God, these movies go some fucking places, and it's bad. It's mostly bad. I will admit that. But it also fucking rules. So yeah, we skipped the point of this whole thing. We skipped up to Hellraiser 8, Hellworld, because it sounded like potentially the best of the bunch, featuring a Matrix-ass Pinhead on the cover, some fucking allusion to an MMO game that like, ooh, it's the Pinhead MMO and everyone's on there playing it. And I'm like, oh, this sounds rad as hell. I want to see what this mid-2000s movie thinks an MMO looks like. This is gonna be fucking great. Let's do it. We got not really that, but we did get Hellworld, so
Well, at least it's not Jaws 4.
My dude, I genuinely worry that I have Stockholm Syndrome because I've said this. This movie is terrible. This is an awful, awful movie. I kind of love it. I genuinely kind of love this movie. And I do worry that it's just because Jaws 3D and Jaws 4 were so exquisitely boring. This looks like fucking Citizen Kane next to them.
I mean, that's fair. At least stuff happens in this. Mm-hmm. It's not very sensible stuff, but it's got Lance Henriksen, and I love Lance Henriksen.
Oh, it's so good to see Lance.
5 stars to Lance Henriksen. Now back to Hell.
So if we don't get to see this MMO thing, what do we get? Well, we get a couple of things. One, we get a weird hell party where people hang out and do drugs.
Pinhead Project X, basically.
Jesus Christ. I mean, yeah, Pinhead Project X, you're right. And we get some teens who go in there and they die, including Carrie Payton and Henry Cavill. Yes, Carrie Payton and Henry Cavill. It's great. And by great, I mean Henry Cavill plays Chris Evans' character from Not Another Teen Movie, so you should know exactly what you're getting into with this. It is just a teen slasher film, full stop.
100%. I was having like war flashbacks to what was that movie called? Cabin in the Woods. The stoner kid from Cabin in the Woods. There's like the one like moody little outcast kid who they grew apart from, and I kept like my eyes kept like phasing between realities where I was currently watching this and currently watching Cabin in the Woods. Something about that kid, which is like, oh God, like this is just like the wise stoner kid from Cabin in the Woods. I'm losing my mind here.
There are a lot of Cabin in the Woods comparisons to be made, honestly. Partially because Cabin in the Woods is genuinely a really brilliant send up of a lot of the tropes in these types of movies. Like they do a lot to really make sure that you feel like you are watching genuinely one of these teen slasher movies and not a parody or satire of it, which just speaks to the craft of Cabin in the Woods. But also there's just a lot of like little bits and idiosyncrasies that feel a lot like watching Cabin in the Woods as we start to kind of explore what's actually happening at this Hellworld party.
It's the shirt. They're wearing the same shirt. They got like a baseball cut tee.
All right. It's never mind what I just said. It's the shirt. We've solved it. It's the shirt. Jackson's putting the pieces together. So Jackson, with your infinite wisdom, shall you continue and tell us what you thought of Hellworld?
Hellworld. I did not enjoy Hellworld very much at all. I was quite sad that it turned out to be, I mean, basically a Jason movie. And especially because there were some maybe potentially genuinely interesting ideas they could have done if they put more thought into the movie than like 3 seconds of this straight to DVD Hellraiser. So that's fine, I guess.
The whole movie was shot in 20 to 24 days total.
And mostly like when I realized that this wasn't going to be Pinhead and the Cyber Chase, like they weren't gonna go into a digital world and like go into like a virtual reality Leviathan land hell. I sort of like folded my arms and pouted for the rest of the 90-minute runtime, I think.
I am 100% with you on that part. I am so disappointed, especially because the little glimpses that we got of Hellworld were so clearly like an FMV late 90s CD game, and I am
it looked like the Icon of Sin. It looked like John Romero.
Yeah. I'm so disappointed that we didn't get more of it because it promised so much and we saw literally none of it.
Very, very sad, very sad. That would have required them to make more of a more of a game prop, even just like some animation. You know, that wasn't in the cards. That wasn't in the budget. They spent it all on Lance Henriksen.
They did want obviously, if you've listened to our previous Hellraiser episodes, I have been reading a textbook about Hellraiser because I am really cool like that, and people want to be my friend, definitely for real. But no, I was reading this book and just kind of, seeing what they had to say about Hellraiser 8, Hellworld, and it turns out like, their budget was pretty limited, but also they wanted to get like a liquid baby for the props in the bottom that would like run around in the floor and everything, and like even that was outside their budget and scope, and that sounds rad as hell.
God, I would have loved like a terrible flubber CGI liquid baby.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been so based. Oh God.
Yeah. So as I said, they shot this whole thing in like 20 to 24 days. It's a super tight schedule. The budget was obviously absolutely fucking nothing. Clive Barker did sign off on this movie, which is kind of wild to think about. Like they showed to him, he's like, yeah, here's some small changes for you, but I think it's decent enough. And like, I kind of get that. I do think it is decent enough, and it kind of is a weird subversive thing in a way that I really like it. We'll get to that later, I promise.
Yeah, I like that. That was my initial reaction, sort of walking out, and that I was much just like, oh, whatever, just like another slasher. I don't really like these. I thought you were gonna fucking hate this, considering how much you love the first one.
I almost did hate this movie, but really the kind of things that they do towards the end of the movie, the subversions that they take, turn it around for me in a way that I really, really liked. And there are a couple pieces of media that I can point to as a reference to be like, this is why I liked it, but I don't want to do that for spoilers for this movie and other movies, because these are all great movies. And honestly, seriously, if you are looking for a bad horror movie to watch, you could do worse than Hellraiser 8. So I don't want to spoil too much about it, because it is a fairly good time, especially clocking in at 95 minutes, including credits. So it's a short fucking movie.
I guess for the non-horror normies like me, you can skip this one. It's not that funny. I think that Sean's assessment is correct for all y'all like horror people. I think you'll probably get a kick out of it. But if you're just looking for some schlock, I don't know. This didn't scratch that itch for me.
It scratched it more than Jaws 4, so take that into consideration.
At least it's not Jaws 4, Put that on the fucking front cover.
Gun to your head, and you're like, you have to watch either Jaws 4 or Hellraiser, Hellworld all the time. It just
comfortably.
Yeah, that's an easy pick there. But no, it was... I genuinely kind of really liked it, despite the fact that I really should have hated it, thanks to what they do at the end, for sure. But like outside of that, the movie itself is still... So I hit a point where I was going to really hate this movie, and then I kind of just flipped a switch and went, all right, let's stop watching this as a Hellraiser movie and start watching it as a goofy teen slasher movie that I would watch at like 3 o'clock on Sci-Fi with my dad on a Saturday afternoon. And as soon as I did that, I went, nah, this movie rules. This is terrible, and I love it, and it's great. Because that's really all it is, with some, and I quote, gratuitous tit shots in there that would keep it from being on Sci-Fi Channel. It is basically a Sci-Fi original movie, warts and all. It's awful. It's terrible. I love it. I love it for that. Like, you have to know what you are getting into with this movie, and you will know whether you're the type of person that likes that, whether you do like just... If you hear Hellraiser 8 and don't immediately recoil, you're probably gonna like the movie.
That's a fair assessment. That's a fair summation.
Man, so some fun facts, just because we'll get into spoilers here in a minute, but I figured some fun facts about the movie. Number one, Adam, the kid who dies right off the bat of the movie, this is not a spoiler. It's literally the first scene of the movie. Don't worry about it. If you notice, he never speaks, and the reason is the actor was Romanian and didn't know English at all. So they just...
Yes!
Yeah, there was a couple of people in the movie that were like that, but most notably, Adam, the impetus for the whole movie, could not speak a lick of English.
Beautiful. I like to think that's canon. That, like, Lance Henriksen had, like, he was like an immigrant, and they met Adam online in Hellworld, and that's how they knew him. And he couldn't actually speak English. That's the new headcanon.
It's a beautiful tale about a found family and how that relates to online communities. It's absolutely wonderful.
Sword Art Online with Pinhead? Come on now.
Oh, that would have been good. That would have been good. However, I do have to just say, speaking of Hellworld, this is clearly kind of playing off the trend of MMOs at the time, specifically something like World of Warcraft, which is kind of fascinating to see looking at it 15 years removed and kind of like trying to diagnose some of the anxieties around MMOs, because there's a lot of like, they're spending too much time on that MMO and they're spending too much time online and all that good stuff. That's really kind of fascinating as being this far removed from it. It feels very quaint and silly in a lot of ways, but like the friendships formed online still feel very relevant even today. It's kind of fascinating how it both shows its age and yet outside of a lot of like just the general vibe does feel like it could be updated to today fairly easily.
Yeah, pretty easy. I think a part of that is just that we don't get a lot of the finer points about what exactly Hellworld is, as far as what it looks like, how it plays. All we really see is a Lamet configuration flash game.
God, again, still so upset that we didn't see any more of that. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, when I had that moment, I was just like, oh. No, I was thinking about that because, I've been playing some boomer shooters, including, the old Dooms recently. And I'm like, yeah, big singy Doom vibes from this. This is it almost felt like a fusion of like that sort of early WoW, like, where the kid's going to get like, sucked in and, be in this vulnerable online space, but also just like aesthetically some of that like Jack Thompson era, like, the Doom is what caused the Columbine massacre and that'll outrage. Very, very quaint.
Yeah, no, for sure. So Jackson, do we have anything we want to else cover before we get into spoilers for Hellworld?
Pre-spoilers, it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize that was Henry Cavill and his extremely iconic chin.
Yeah, it was very entertaining to point to the thing on screen as it came up and Sam goes, hang on, because it showed Henry Cavill and Carrie Payton in the same title card. And Sam just like, what? They're both there? And then the first time we see them, like in a close-up, it's both of them side by side sharing the screen. It is wild seeing both of these two, especially for how big names they are nowadays.
Carrie Payton played Drebin in Metal Gear Solid 4.
He's done it, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we have accomplished Metal Gear Solid. Ladies and gentlemen, the lander has made contact.
Look, if I didn't say it apropos of nothing, that somebody would have been like, I can't believe Jackson didn't catch an easy Metal Gear connection. I gotta keep them on their toes.
You know what? That's fair. Although I think a better, more easily recommended one would have been something like MGS2. Hey-oh, spoilers. Let's get into spoilers here.
Ooh, let's do it.
So, before we get into spoilers, as always, if you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review on iTunes. Tell a friend about us. It's the only way we grow. Follow us on Twitter at BADH_cast. Patreon, patreon.com/BADHcast. And Jackson, it's time to reveal what we're doing next week.
Ooh, baby. More trash.
Oh, baby. We're going to roll around in the muck and the mire next week as we bring on a guest to talk about Star Wars Episode 2, The Phantom Menace. That's not it. The Attack of the Clones. I got there. Hey, my brain works pretty well. Thanks for checking in. How you doing? How are you? It's going to be a wild episode, mostly because our friend that we're bringing in is a staunch defender of episode 2. So it's, again, this is not going to be an episode where we come in and just shit on the prequels, because we are insane and stupid and really want no one to respect our opinions ever again.
This will be fascinating for me, because I've long maintained that Attack of the Clones is the worst one by like a country mile. Like, it's not even close.
The worst prequel, or just...
I think all out of all of them.
Ooh.
Yeah. Like, it's real stinky. So I'm ready for this meeting of the minds.
Boy. All right. Well, for now, though, we should get into spoilers. So let's do that and talk about what makes Hellworld interesting. So there are a number of comparisons I can make right off the bat, and I'm going to just kind of lightly allude to them in a number of ways, and it should really fully explain why this movie connected with me in a lot of ways. There are comparisons to be made to Hannibal, a great fucking cop procedural that I really, really like. There are comparisons to be made to things like 10 Cloverfield Lane, one of my favorite movies of all time. I love 10 Cloverfield Lane. And indeed, there are some kind of weird comparisons that could be made to Metal Gear Solid 2. And I kind of hate that I'm the one doing that, but they exist.
Well, because especially with the Metal Gear Solid 2 one, there's definitely, like, even before the twist, it's obvious that there's, you know, at least a bit of a meta element. This is definitely a post-Scream, post-Wes Craven's New Nightmare slasher, where there was a bit more self-awareness, but not so much in the way of, like, you know, there's some, like, winking to the camera about tropes, but mostly it's just, like, we're gonna have some, like, fan service and shout-outs to the lore, and like we're gonna set this in a real world, finger quotes, where Pinhead is just a game, or is he? You know, so there's definitely that metafiction element even before we get to the ending, pretty clearly there from the start, even with just the game hook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very much setting up for the mindset of, hey, Hellraiser is a thing in this world, and it's a cultural phenomenon. Pinheads all over the place. Henry Cavill shows up to scare Chelsea in a Chatterer mask. Like, that's just a thing that happens. So, yeah, I mean, it right out the gate, it's like, yeah, we know, you know what Hellraiser is. They know what Hellraiser is. We're all on the same page here. Let's go from here. And that is really interesting and really what makes the core of this movie tick, and indeed the twist unto itself is by establishing that, like, yes, we are in the Hellraiser world. We immediately start to understand that as things happen here, the Pinhead is involved. We see flashes of him throughout. We see flashes of other Cenobites throughout. However, there's something weird about everything. Like, this is why I should have hated this movie, because it is treated as a teen slasher. And we all know Pinhead, he just loves killing random teens. It's his favorite thing. Frank from the first movie, random dude he met on the street, walked up to him, pulled him apart, sold his soul off to hell. Absolutely casual. Don't worry about it. It is what it is.
It's funny that you mentioned this, because this is one area where I felt like I wasn't sure. And this, I think this was partially my fault. I'm willing to give the movie at least a little bit of credit that I had only seen the first two, but I know that, like, based on the descriptions of some of the later ones, you know, I couldn't tell you exactly which ones, but, like, you know, eventually Pinhead did kind of get to, like, a, you know, over the top evil, like, Jason sort of slasher. So I wasn't sure watching this if they were, like, doing a thing or if it was just trash. And I guess the answer is a little of both.
Yeah, it is a little bit of both, because this movie, despite the fact that it does have Pinhead out here just wantonly decapitating Carrie Payton for fucking no reason whatsoever.
You just need his inhaler to treat his asthma. Like,
yeah, absolutely no reason, given that Pinhead, his whole deal is that he punishes those who open the box, and the lament configuration chooses those who the box must be opened by. They must be punished, yada, 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 yada. You have called us, we have came type of deal. So no one called them. The box hasn't been opened. What the fuck is going on here? And why is he just Freddy and Jasoning all over the place? Just stabbing kids, hanging them on meat hooks. This isn't fucking the Pinhead I know. What happened to Elliot Spencer? What is this? What is this? The answer is that it's not actually Pinhead. It's a hallucination brought on by our good friend Lance, as he has drugged all of the kids and then buried them in coffins to teach them for, and this is where it gets kind of weird and ambiguous, not saving his son from the Hellworld video game, which his son got really invested in, Adam, to be clear, and killed himself as a result of it. It's a weird revenge thing, and like it does raise some interesting questions of like who's really to blame for it and yada yada yada. But like just this twist of like, oh no, it hasn't actually been Hellraiser, but we've been playing with the mythology, and that's why it really only works if you do understand that it is set in the Hellraiser universe, and it lets it get that play in it. It lets you fiddle with the lore, kind of play around a little bit, shift it a bit to make it fit your needs, and then invert it before reverting it right back to where it is, because it does end with Pinhead and Chatterer and Bound showing up to end Lance in a very Pinhead way, and one that feels far more of his character as a lawful neutral vanguard, or maybe more chaotic neutral, but either way, a vanguard of a certain order rather than somebody who just runs around and decapitates kids. So it almost resets the lore to a point where it makes more sense in some ways. I kind of love that about it. It's bad. It sucks. It's so good.
I definitely would have preferred if we didn't get the stinger of the real Pinhead at the end. Like this feels like an element that we're playing with the fictionality of the elements in the world and questioning it. That sort of MGS2 stuff. I mean, that's neat. I like that. To have him get owned by the real Pinhead at the end and actually have the box feels a little nonsensical to me. But I mean, whatever. It's a straight to DVD Hellraiser 8. Fuck it. Why am I questioning this?
Yeah, that is, I think, part of the reason too. As I said, I did let myself just be like, nah, this is literally just a sci-fi original. What the fuck am I doing here? Why am I trying to dig so far into it? That let me enjoy that. And I think that's why the stinger worked for me, despite the fact that, again, this movie sucks shit.
This movie is like looking me dead in the eye, and it's like, all right, Jackson Keller, you are cringe, and you take everything so seriously, and if there's even a hint of like an interesting element, you will evaluate a movie as a real movie. I fucking dare you to do that in this movie, Hellraiser 8 Hellworld. I fucking dare you, Jackson. And I'm like, I can feel myself taking the bait, Sean. Mm-hmm. I can feel myself opening the box as we speak.
And I mean, that's the problem, is that there are some kind of clever ideas in here. And there are also just a lot of like plot dead ends and plot cul-de-sacs where like nothing really happens with her. Like someone will ask a weird question and then it just kind of moves past her, doesn't really deal with her, doesn't really engage with it. And that does kind of suck in a lot of ways.
That sort of gets into what I think is my problem with this kind of twist, if not done with care, because I was just talking to Sean in the pre-discussion about a book that I won't name here, but absolutely hated, with a similar sort of like plot twist to this movie. And my problem is that if you don't take care to construct your scenes and construct your moments and imagery in a way that's kind of forward thinking and thinking about the twist, the movie can sort of feel like, if you have any lingering questions of like, why did that happen? And the answer is just that it wasn't real. Now, sometimes the movie actually is clever about this on occasion. Like, I did like how her interaction, the blonde girl, she calls the cops to try and help her out of her jam.
That's Chelsea, by the way.
Yeah, Chelsea. She calls the cops, and that call is real, but she's not where she thinks she is because she's buried in a hole, and like is telling the cops like, oh, I'm banging on the window, like look at here, and the cops like can't see her, but they're still talking to her. Like that's clever. But then there are other moments where the movie just kind of keeps going and goes into a place, and it's like, what are we like? How much of this was a hallucination? How much of the real party? Because there was a real party. Because the interactions with the cops are real. How did nobody notice, even at this wild rager, that Lance Henriksen was burying 5 children alive? And like that's the sort of thing that, again, this is like looking dead in the eye and being like, come on, Jackson, I fucking dare you to take Hellraiser 8 Hellworld seriously on its own merits. And it's like, you're right, but also
yeah, no, I completely understand why you're struggling with this too, because there is a lot of things to it that it almost asks me to do as well. And there is even some stuff that you can take seriously about it. Questions of isolation and found family and how that interacts with everything going on. Like this, like isolation is clearly a big theme of this movie. But like it definitely does not. It poses some broader questions that it doesn't seem interested in answering. It's way more about going for the vibe of isolation rather than exploring what's real, what's not, how does that interact with everything, how everything fits together nicely. It doesn't care about that.
I often make distinctions. Like I remember way back when we first talked about the first Hellraiser, I think was around the time I started using this sort of language on the show that I was like, oh, this is a real movie. And like that, this is sort of a good example of what I mean. Like, it's not so much about the budget or the fact that it's like straight to DVD, although that doesn't help. To me, the mindset, like it feels like even when we do have these elements, it's less so that, we have these elements because there was someone, even if it was just like a producer or like a writer that was sort of new, sort of a neophyte, didn't sink his teeth into like a project yet and is sort of on this like schlocky sequel that, maybe we're going to take seriously anyway. Like those themes don't exist because, we are genuinely interested in telling a story. Those themes exist because, all right, we need another Hellraiser. What could be different about this one? Oh, video games. And we're gonna like put pepper in the minimum amount to like hold it together so we can get to the slasher stuff.
I think that is cynical and disingenuous in a lot of ways, because a lot of times, a lot of these sequels, while there is a lot of studio mandating happening with it, a lot of times the people who are making it, I mean, Doug Bradley is still in this movie. There's still a beating heart to Hellraiser that exists through its writers, through its creators, who want to see more things happen, who want to tell more tales in the world of Hellraiser, and to just basically callously, offhandedly write off most of the people who work on this stuff as neophytes who are creating this film because a producer mandated it, I think is doing disingenuousness to the culture of horror film, where yes, we do see a lot of bad sequels that just get pumped out as a result of that, but there is also a lot of passionate people working on various sides of horror because they like this series or they like what it offers and doing their own things with it.
That's fair. That's the more reasonable take for sure. I have not done my research in any regard on that, but that's like the gut feeling that I got while watching the movie, and it could be wrong.
I can confirm it is wrong.
It isn't really?
Yes. Having read the book, read about who was on charge of this and how they had been doing things, yeah, it is. There is a lot of people on this project who had a lot of passion for Hellraiser.
Well, I'll take the L on this one. Damn.
Again, I mean, if they didn't, they wouldn't have gone to go show it to Clive Barker to be like, "Hey, is this a good Hellraiser movie?"
Oh, I forgot about that detail. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, if it was just a shill, they would have just thrown it out, and as opposed to being like, "Yo, give us notes, make this better, make this line with your vision." So.
All right. I mean, yeah, I've been thoroughly blown the fuck out on that one. And I'll take that L. Man, wow, that That makes me sadder that there was passion put into this.
Well, see, that's also shitty, though, because there's clearly a lot of fun. Again, enjoy the fun of the movie.
But I didn't. I didn't have a good time. That's the problem.
But I mean, like, you gotta look beyond what I'm saying here. Like, I know this sounds, God, up my own ass in a lot of ways, but this kind of goes back to a lot of stuff that we've talked about with things like Jesus Christ Vampire Hunter and, God, not Thanksgiving, but also Thanksgiving, honestly. And just like, even if the movie itself might not be great or perfect, but like you can feel that it's not hollow. Like there's something here that even if it doesn't necessarily land all the way, like Jaws 4 felt more hollow. Jaws 3D felt super fucking hollow as a result. This movie, even though it was fucking terrible, it is, again, I cannot stress enough, despite how much I am out here vehemently defending this movie, it's a bad fucking movie. It sucks shit. But there's still a lot of passion behind it. And I think that there's a lot of missing the forest for the trees going on here, where like there is some stuff that dead ends and some themes that don't go anywhere and some ideas that are interesting that just kind of flop. But there's so much else happening around it that is stupid and fun and interesting in its own right, that like zoning in on that thing, no matter, Jackson, you can't charge the red cape. It's still just a red cape. They're gonna move it out of the way. It's a smoke screen. It's a lie.
Oh boy. Oh God. Well, look, I'll never not cop to being a Grinch. I'll always cop to being a Grinch. But I mean, man, I just I can respect that, that there was passion put into it. I just did not have a very good time with it.
And that is perfectly acceptable. I will 100% accept I did not like the movie. That is, I think that the disparaging, it's something that I need to work on myself, is just like disparaging the people who might have worked on it in one way or another, especially because like reading more of this stuff is like, there's more to it than what we're seeing.
We've talked about this before, and it is like, it does get to be like a line. In general, it does not do anyone any favors to kind of jump to those conclusions. But at the same time, like when we're talking about other things, especially bigger budget things, in like a Marvel movie, for example, I mean, to go to our favorite whipping boy, like there is something sort of hollow about the fact that like, so many of those battle sequences are like prevised and begun even before they have a premise, let alone a script. Mm-hmm. When you know that shit like that goes on in the production of movies, it can be hard to not be a Grinch sometimes.
No, for sure. But again, this is something that I have found about myself through doing this podcast, is that I will absolutely stand up for just zero budget films wherever I can, because most of the time there's a lot more going on under the hood than we give them credit for.
Yeah, I mean, usually, I mean, I'm an indie author. I should know that. As the little guy, that there's more that goes into it, even if the thing is bad, which mine isn't, because it's great. You should buy it. But listen, but no.
All this said, I can't believe I'm about to say this. All this said, I do have to talk about how much Adam fucking sucks. Because again, I have just spent 40 minutes defending this movie as like some sort of thing that people should watch, right? I've been like, it's great. You should watch it.
You've been standing hard, and I'm here for it. I've thoroughly enjoyed. This is an evisceration I'll take, Daddy.
You can't have pleasure without pain, my friends. The agony and the ecstasy. Let's dig into goddamned Adam, who is a ghost, I guess, and calls 911. Right? Is that what we're getting at here? Is this what we're supposed to conclude from this movie?
Wait, I thought... Oh, you're talking about the end. Shit. Yeah, I guess. I forgot about that detail. I'd kind of already like my eyes had rolled back into my head by this point. No, you're totally right. That is what happened.
Yeah, Adam, not Chelsea, but Adam is the one who seems to call 911 to get the police to come save them because he's a ghost. And ooh, my friend.
Oh, okay. Wait. I have an alternative explanation because I was thinking about this.
Okay.
Although the fact that they go out of the way to show the Adam ghost is odd. I thought what had happened was because there was the one officer who, after, Chief Wiggum went away, he was like, hey, I believe you. Like, where are you?
That man also only speaks Romanian and needed to be ADR'd afterwards.
I noticed the ADR on him for sure. But I didn't know that he was just like a Romanian guy. Well, I thought maybe it was like a Tommy Wiseau situation. He flubbed the line.
Nope. He could not speak a lick of English.
Beautiful. But like I thought what had happened, or what I thought the implication was, I guess until the Adam ghost is that like that guy stayed behind and Lance Henriksen had to shut him up because, he was talking to her through the coffin. Like he found the coffin and was able to actually talk to her. And then because Lance Henriksen had to kill him, the police are going to take a missing officer very seriously, and that brought them back there. Was my guess. But then, then why do we need the Adam ghost if that's what happened?
And see, this is really where everything kind of does start to fall apart, and it doesn't. Let me rephrase that sentence. This is a good example of everything falling apart because the movie does start to fall apart almost from the word go, honestly. Again, I have to just admit that this is a bad movie because it is. There's a lot of really weird things that don't make any sense at all. Like, what you just described in conjunction with everything else going on in the movie. And why does Lance just sit there and monologue at these kids for half an hour? There's just so many questions about a lot of things, and it's a bad movie.
Well, hey, Sean, I'll say this. You've done it. You've managed to make me feel a measure in my stone, gray, cold little heart of warmth and respect for Hellraiser 8, Hellworld. Despite disliking this movie so much, I went to Twitter to say I hate movies. So you've truly done God's work here. Doug Bradley should send you a check.
Please, I'll talk to you later, Mr. Pinhead, sir. I anxiously await. Actually, can I just talk about Hellraiser for a minute?
Absolutely.
So I recently discovered that on Comixology, the first Hellraiser omnibus of comics is available there. So that's pretty much what I've been doing with my life recently. This was unrelated to the podcast. I literally just stumbled across it very recently. I was like, well, guess I'm reading that now. And I want to talk about it a little bit because it's so close to being so interesting. And then it does this weird thing where it kind of, I don't want to say it has an MCU problem where it like feels a need to go really big and bombastic at the end, but it goes from something that feels very tight and self-contained, very much a Hellraiser 1, where it feels very intimate, a conversation between Pinhead and Kirsty Cotton. Kirsty is back, the main protagonist from the first two films, and
testament to those movies that I remember her name.
Yeah, no, for sure, they're great. She's great. So they bring her back, and it kind of becomes this game of chess between Kirsty and Pinhead, where basically Kirsty has a group of people who have also received Lemashon's boxes, Lament configurations, and have escaped the Cenobites in one form or another. And this does delve a little bit further into the lore, where we start to see like other boxes, other configurations, and summoning different, basically demons of hell to come and attack them. But like, it still manages to maintain a really small, grounded story between the two of them is just like this game of chess, and it's deeply fascinating. It goes as far at one point where Pinhead and Kirsty like basically strike a deal to switch places, and Kirsty becomes Pinhead literally, and takes over as a Baron of Hell essentially, and you know, is there to correct everything from the ground up. And like, this is fascinating, and seeing, you know, Elliot Stevens, I think is his name, is Pinhead's actual name, returning to his human form and going out in the world. And like, his whole message was originally, I want to right my wrongs, I want to seek redemption and become a better person. And this shit right here, this is so good. Like, that concept of like having the two of them switch roles and get really introspective about who they are and who they represent is absolutely fascinating way to take the Hellraiser lore. It's so fucking good. And then I kind of lose the plot a little bit here, because then it comes back, and when I finally piece everything back together, Pinhead, the original Pinhead, Elliot, has transcended and become a god of some sort, and there's this whole like apocalypse narrative happening. Meanwhile, Kirsty is still dealing with things in hell and trying to sort things out on her side of things, and Leviathan rises from underneath to the oceans and has to like sort everything out, and like Deep Throat is there, and she's like a triple agent, and there's just so much happening, and it goes from this like small introspective character story of both of them and how they react to being in each other's shoes and how they seek redemption for who they were and what they have done, to I don't fucking even know, like some galaxy brained ass story that I cannot comprehend. I'm gonna reread the entire thing. I won't even pretend like I'm not going to, but it loses me, and it's so upsetting because it starts out so fucking strong.
Damn. Meanwhile, when I finished watching this movie, I said, I wonder if there's any fan art of Pinhead fighting Sephiroth, and I Googled that.
Oh boy, yep, that's beating a dead horse right there. One of us has some profound introspective thing about the nature of film and storytelling, and the other one is out here with a finger up their ass, just being like, ha ha, Sephiroth, or ha ha, Hellraiser, cats. I guess. I don't know. What would I cats. Let's
not even pretend, Sean. You're not a Hellraiser guy. You're officially a cats guy.
I have made so many mistakes in my life, and that might be the biggest of them all. I think I'm done here if you are.
Bravo. That was I'm genuinely thrilled. I can only hope that next week's guest provides as stirring a defense for Attack of the Clones as you've provided for Hellraiser 8 Hellworld. I'm genuinely thrilled.
I am more than willing to bet they're going to have just they have already watched the movie like 2 weeks ago. They are so excited for this. They're taking notes. They're coming prepared. I can tell you that much.
I can't wait to be old man, like Mr. Potter from It's a Wonderful Life, like a crotchety old man. I can't wait to just get like slam dunked into the concrete for a second week in a row.
Oh boy. All right. Well, I've been Sean McKinda. You can find me on Twitter at Sean_McKinda. I don't know what I tweet.
Isn't the Dunkachino account dead?
The Dunkachino account is dead. It closed like a month ago. What do I do? I should just delete my Twitter. What if I just deleted my Twitter?
Oh my God. Madman. Oh God. Well, I've got a book out, so I can't delete my Twitter now. I've committed to that bit. You can find me at Jackson J. Keller, but the more important thing is there's a link to the Amazon page where you can purchase Kelly is Unbreakable. It's a book. Does it have anything to do with Hellraiser? Not really. We're both indies though. So, you know, I'm not showing very good indie solidarity here. That's bad juju. That's bad karma. I can only shiver in fear of what comes next for my transgression.
The Hellraiser stands. Go get him. Go get him. Jackson J. Keller on Twitter. Get him. Our reach isn't that strong. On a good day, you might get one tweet of being like, you know.
Just watch This Is the One episode that blows up just because Pinhead was trending on Twitter the other day.
If this is the one episode that blows up, I will die happy. Honestly, I am sorry to Jackson. Don't actually go after him. He's a close personal friend of mine.
It's too late, Sean. They've already review bombed the book. Oh, God. It's at 1 star on Goodreads.
Shit. I'm so sorry. Shit. No, fuck. At least, listen. If nothing else, you could take solace by the fact that I have acknowledged that there is that slight, tiny little percentage that this could actually do any sort of numbers. And so I have successfully shot ourselves in the foot, and this is going to do absolutely nothing. Don't worry about that at all. Follow us on Twitter at BADH_cast. We mostly tweet about episode updates and shit like that. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/BADHcast. We got a bunch of great bonus episodes back there that you should absolutely go check out. There's some really, really good stuff, and we've got stuff coming up this month as well. Also, if you are a $10 patron, one of our wonderful, wonderful stallions, you get a special shout out.
Thank you so much. Julia, Travis, Pat, Mom, Summer, wonderful. Y'all are delightful.
Thank you so much. And also thanks to Lowe's the Highway for the use of our theme song. It is Suicide, alternate take of the album High Octane, Low Expectations. They're a wonderful band. You should go check them out wherever you can. Buy the music, stream the music, Spotify, Bandcamp, all that good stuff. Also thanks to 25yearslatersite.com. There's a little button of us in the corner that you can absolutely click on. But while you're there, you should see all the wonderful people doing all the wonderful writing. There's a bunch of it. Go check that out. Next week, as I have said multiple times, get excited, get fucking hyped out of your goddamned gourd for this shit, because we're coming in hot with Attack of the Clones. Praise.
If you found catharsis in listening to me get thoroughly dunked on this week, you bet your ass you better come back for the next one.
Bye.